Hello Toastmasters and welcome to our next video on the new member journey. This is our second last video in this series and we are covering today the last stage of the new member journey, which is the Toastmaster step. And this is probably the biggest barrier for so many clubs because what we often find is that they are able, like many clubs out there, are able to sign up new members whenever they have guests turn up to a meeting. However, they come across a fairly big wall fairly quickly, which is that these members never renew. And it's a sad fact across Toastmasters worldwide that the majority of members never make it past their first renewal period. So they will join, stay for a few months, if that, and then they will leave. And that's an issue for clubs worldwide because that means that we have to go through the process of finding new members to replace them all the time. Whereas if we could retain the members that we have, the new members that we have for longer, we wouldn't need to work nearly as hard to keep replacing them. And so that is why the Toastmaster stage is the last part of the new member journey, which is all about how we set our new members off right so that they will want to renew and they'll want to stay with our clubs for longer and longer. It comes at the very, very end of this whole process that started all the way back with target market and then worked its way through to making potential members aware of Toastmasters, connecting them to our club through the prospect stage, encouraging them to come to a meeting and then to join as a member. And we're now at the final stretch of that particular journey. And there are a number of different things to consider as a club when we're working through this stage. So first and foremost, as I said, joining is not enough because so many members join Toastmasters every year and they never stay. Because so many times, once someone has joined the club, they're almost forgotten about. Like, thank you for your money, thank you for joining us. Now you just get forgotten about like every other member. That's not okay. And that's a large part of the reason why so many of our new members don't stay is because they are not being looked after. They're not being made to feel welcome. They're not being supported through those critical first few months of being a member where they're trying to understand what's going on around them and how to make the most of this program and how to make it work. So as clubs then, what we have to do is build that commitment from the very, very beginning. And it starts all the way back at the induction because every club out there should be inducting their new members because that doesn't just create a sense of formality or ceremony. It's a critical tool when it comes to building a sense of community because having new members inducted and celebrated by all of the other members in the club makes them feel part of the family or part of the network rather than outsiders who are joining an already established group. And by inducting them using the Toastmasters promise as well, it also brings them into that Toastmasters understanding of what our expectations are as an organization and as a club are from our new members and from all members. That will then get followed up with orientation sessions because again, as a new member coming in, there's so much to learn about what Toastmasters is, about the club, how it all works, how to get started, how to make the most of it, what's on offer. And so having orientations and introductions to both the club and to Toastmasters and also to the education program as well are absolutely critical because the last thing we want is for new members to be running around several months down the track. They haven't given their icebreaker, they haven't participated because they don't know what's going on or how to take on a meeting role. We want to explain all of those critical functional things. We want them to understand where they need to go for help, how to get started, how it all fits together, and where they can find more information. So that is absolutely critical for all members and especially new members. And the third part of this one about building commitment is to get them scheduled for their icebreaker as soon as possible because Toastmasters is all about participation and the growth primarily comes from participating, particularly in undertaking the projects in the program because by doing the icebreaker, the speaker will receive an evaluation, which will then give them some actionable points to work on and that encouragement to keep moving forward. And I see a lot of clubs out there sort of hold off in encouraging new members to do the icebreaker because they don't want to intimidate them. But in doing that, they're holding back, I guess, a lot of the benefit of being a member. And so the sooner that a new member jumps in and is supported and made to feel like jumping in is perfectly okay, stuffing up is fine, making mistakes is absolutely okay at this first point of the process. It's all about participating and having a go. The sooner that member does an icebreaker, the sooner they're going to become more comfortable with speaking in front of the rest of their club and moving through the rest of the program. We want to jump in there, get them started, and get them to get their feet wet. And then once they've done that, it's how do we keep up that support for that new member all the way through? And assigning a mentor is an absolutely critical part of this process. Some members may come in and they may feel fairly confident already, and that's okay. They may not necessarily want a mentor who's going to sit with them and sort of walk them through step by step because they're self-starters, they're very independent, they feel comfortable researching what they need by themselves. That's okay. Still assign them a mentor anyway, because that person isn't necessarily going to be sitting down and talking to them all the time or walking them through all of those things, but they will be keeping an eye on that new member and making sure that they're picking it up. And if there is an area that they might need some assistance with, just having a gentle conversation and sort of giving them a couple of pointers here or there in an unobtrusive way, rather than jumping in and trying to teach them as though they know nothing. And then, of course, the final part of that is for all members, and particularly for new members, is to encourage that regular participation and to follow up if new members join and then start to have periods where they start missing meetings without apologies. Because again, once you've missed 1 or 2 meetings, it's very easy to start missing them altogether and then eventually not to renew. And having mentors or the VP membership or whoever it is in your club following up with all members to make sure that they are attending, they're participating, that they're involved in the club and continually involved in some small way or large way, means that they're going to build that commitment, become integrated into Toastmasters and to your club, and feel much more comfortable with staying and renewing. Because every time the renewals season comes up, they ask themselves the question, and every member asks themselves the question, it's like, is continuing with Toastmasters still a good investment of my time, of my money, of my energy? And if the answer to that is no, they're not going to renew. And we want every member, whenever they ask that question every 6 months, to say yes. We want them to feel like they're gaining from the program, that they're growing as human beings in a personal and professional sense. And we want them to feel like they belong. And if that happens, then those members are going to go on to stay for as long as they can. And if they do end up having to move away because life takes them in different directions, that's okay, because they will be so committed to the organization that they will want to find another club in wherever it is they end up, or start one if they're in a place where there isn't one. And that's absolutely key. So there are a few tools that you can use at this stage that your club can deploy to help with bringing those new members on board as quickly as possible and helping them feel like they're part of the club and understanding what's going on. So first and foremost, there is a welcome template, because again, although Toastmasters International does send out an email to all new members, it's important for the club as well to write something a little bit more personal and something that is specifically targeted at that member. And the district has pulled together a number of templates and documents that you might want to consider providing to that new member, just to make them feel welcome and to help them get started. Again, these are just suggestions. You may have something more effective for your own club already. That's perfectly fine. But if you don't have a system in place already, consider using these as a starting point and then building on them over time as you work out what works best for your club. The second part is the mentor tracking sheet. And again, this is a simple template the district has created to track every single member and who their mentors are. So every member should be listed in that tracking sheet. And even if their mentors aren't in the club, it should still be noted whether they do or don't have one, because every member in the entire organization, all the way from the newest member right up to the international president, should have a mentor, at least one. And it's important as a club to make sure that we're tracking that, because mentoring is one of the unique selling propositions of Toastmasters. It's one of the things that we can offer through our clubs and through our organization that you can't get in a workshop, you can't get at a university course, you can't get necessarily in a social group. But mentoring is something that you can get by joining Toastmasters. And by doing that well, we strengthen the Toastmasters brand and we strengthen the value that we can offer to potential guests and therefore encourage them to sign up as members. And then the final set of tools are some checklists around orientation. So orientation to not just things that new members need to know about their club that they've just joined, but also about the Toastmasters program, the Toastmasters organization itself, how it all works. And again, we've pulled together some simple templates and simple tools to cover. You may have other things in your club that you want to cover, and that's perfectly fine, but use these as a starting point because it will help make sure that you're covering off everything that needs to be done, and it will add consistency to the orientations that your members receive when they join the club. So you don't have one new member coming in who's getting a very bare bones orientation, if they get one at all, and you've got another member who's come in and they're getting a really thorough, really useful orientation because two different people have done it. By having these tools and these checklists, there's a consistent, high quality orientation that is delivered across the board. Now, by applying those principles and using these tools, again, this is the final stage. This is where we sort of turn new members into long-term Toastmasters and enthusiastic members who are going to work the program, develop themselves, and become fully functioning and contributing members of your club. And that is the final step in the new member journey. So there you have it. Those are the 6 steps of the new member journey. We've got one final video just to wrap it all together. But thank you for listening to this particular session, and I will see you at the last video to summarize what we've covered and to bring it all together. So thank you and see you in the next video.